anxieties, feeling emotionally out of place today. So I'm stepping out like no one is. A beautiful daylight poetry, practicing diplomacy. Don't you feel so out of place? But it's gonna be a great day, great day. Don't worry, have to worry. It's gonna be a great day, it's gonna be a great day. You ain't got to hurry. Just sit back into the state of life. Everything will be alright. Alright. Great, great day. Got to know she ain't nobody's fool. No, search for you in time. You will find the answer to the question that's always on your mind. It's gonna be a great day. Don't worry, have to worry. It's gonna be a great day. You ain't got to hurry. You just sit back into the state of life. Everything will be alright. Great day. It's gonna be a great day. Don't have to worry. It's gonna be a great day. Things are about to happen to you. Just step back into the state of life. Everything will be alright. Great day.
Might be coming in your area, but I guarantee don't let that get you down because the sun is rising. Today is gonna be a great day.
Have to worry. It's gonna be a great day. You ain't got to hurry. You just sit back into the state of life. Everything will be alright. Great day, great day. It's gonna be a great day. It's gonna be a great day. Have to worry. It's gonna be a great day. Don't have to hurry. You just sit back into the state of life. Everything will be alright. It's gonna be a great day. It's gonna be a great day. Don't have to worry. It's gonna be a great day. Don't have to hurry. You just sit back into the state of life. Everything will be alright.
Well, thank you so much for joining us again. Another day, another chance to be the best that you can be. Today, we're going to be talking about a very interesting subject, what we must consider stopping in our lives for success, particularly 5 nagging habits. 5 nagging habits that we want to bring under control. And we're going to go right into it. But first, we're going to say thank you for following us right there on Twitter. Here is the call letters at SALETTEUSA TV. Join, follow, share, and contribute if you will. Don't forget, we are also on Instagram, and we would love for you to join us there at the same call name at Select USA TV. Let's get right to work. We're talking about 5 habits that we need to definitely stop as quick as possible. And as we move forward in our success, we are honored. We are honored to have people in our lives who contribute to us. Who has contributed to your success? Something to think about. Habit number 1 that we want to encourage you on today is to stop doubting yourself. Stop doubting yourself. Individual told me about a particular thing that they were working on. And this particular project is something that will add a variety of benefits to their lives, and they were sharing as they began to take the particular test that is required for this career change, if you will, this opportunity magnet, if you will, uh, that she began to take the test, and her first thought or her first mind on many of the answers were not used, but she second guessed. I need some help. Herself. She second guessed herself. So the question is, are you doubting you? What we must stop immediately is self doubt. Where does it come from? Let me give you a variety of ideas to think about, and you can research on your own. This self doubt can come from not being confirmed in the early or formidable years of your life, not being held or celebrated as a person who has self confidence or exude self confidence. Put downs can also bring about self doubt. How many of you out there have been put down? The crab mentality also affects self doubt. As long as you are down, as long as you are considered the weak link in the circle, there are a plethora of other avenues, perhaps, that will help you stand up. But once you stand up, once you salute, once your shoulders are squared back, and you may not even have all the resources in place, you may not have all of the dreams aligned and the steps therein. But once you stand up, it is funny to me that there are so many people that will not stand with you. And it can cause momentary self-doubt. Self-doubt can also occur when you're in your formidable years, you were not affirmed, as I said earlier, and your self-concept is damaged. See, self-concept is your self-image. If your image is damaged of yourself, then doubt therein will be the next creepy habit. For me, self-doubt came so often because I did not or could not or refused to, whichever, chronologically document my achievements. This is why a journal of your milestones is important, a journal or what I call a rollout. If you have milestones in your project, in your career, in your personal development, please document those milestones, because you could tell yourself at a moment of crisis, if I did it before through my divine uh, inheritance and through the celebration of my ancestors, I can do it again. Habit number one, we have to stop doubting ourselves. Can I get an amen on that on Twitter? Hook me up. All right. Next in line is self loathing. We have to stop our self loathing. I'm going to bring it to full screen because I'm not the focus, but the focus is definitely this chart that I'm sharing with you. Okay, so on Sunday Thoughts today, self-loathing is when we lick our wounds. I need some help right there. When we lick our wounds, when we wonder why, when we continue to cry, maybe not outwardly, but surely inwardly, and maybe not just inwardly, but also outwardly. But self-loathing is licking the wounds, the fresh wound of yesterday. Yesterday's gone, but I'm still keeping it alive by keeping it wet with depression, wet with whys, wet with why me. Self-loathing is the freezing of momentum. It is actually taking yourself out of the present and placing your mind, body, and spirit into the past, of which you cannot change. It is gone, gone, gone. And I want to encourage you today, because I was the president of the Self-Loathing Club. For 30 plus years, I had struggles with depression, and that is clinically so, and that is understandably so to a certain degree. But there were several times in my career as I worked with youth and youth development and the court system and all of that. And then when I was launched into broadcasting, there were several aspects in my career throughout the decades where I could have been frozen in the loathing of yesterday. Let me repeat. There is nothing you can do about yesterday but learn the lessons forward. A very famous actor, Denzel Washington, said, he said, fail forward. You're always going to be learning. You might as well learn from yesterday because there is nothing else that you can do regarding yesterday. I need some help. You should be tweeting me by now. Don't forget to follow us right there on Instagram. DM me any questions you may have. Habit number 3. It's only 5 habits that we're talking about today. Habit number 3. I don't want to move on to that self-loathing until you understand there's nothing you can do about what happened. As drastic, as grievous as it may be, as heartbreaking as it feels, this too shall pass. This moment, this trial, this season of loathing, where the wound is not only perhaps fresh, but kept fresh by the licking of why. I need some help. By casting a spell on yourself and listening to the music and hanging with the people that support the loathing atmospheric pressure, which gets you absolutely nowhere. Self-loathing must be a habit we stop. I don't care where you are in life. I don't care what your circumstance is. There's always an entry step, an introductory step into your next season, and you can do it. Your mother did it. Your father did it. Maybe your uncle did it, your auntie. There is someone somewhere around you that have stepped out of their mourning, out of the grieving, out of their why, and they have begun to live again. So I want to encourage you to be successful, to stop self-loathing. Next habit here, self-doubt is what we covered out, self-loathing. And now we want to talk about briefly self-guilt. How many of us are still feeling guilty about a 10-year-old, 20-year-old, 15-year-old, 15-day-year-old mistake? We feel guilty for a lot of reasons. Won't go into it heavy because most of our attention span is so short. We don't want to delay and belinger the point. But self-guilt is that which you hold yourself not only accountable to, but you begin to punish or judge and or punish yourself for a mistake that you cannot change, that you can only once again learn from. So these habits run in groups. I won't talk about that much today, but these habits tend to run in groups. If you have self-loathing, more than likely it's over self-doubt because, I could have prevented that, or I could have stopped that. And if you have self-doubt, more than likely you have self-guilt because now you are judging yourself and or condemning yourself for an action that you cannot change, that you can only learn from. So in order for us to move forward in our success, we have to stop feeling guilty about what we cannot change. There's always going to be. I remember when I used to do auctions, I used to go in and I used to buy a whole bin, sometimes 2 bins. If I'm feeling good, I'll get 3 bins. It's rare to have 3 bins because you got to have that kind of help to unpack the 3 bins. But I remember going to the auctions and I remember bidding and had my paddle and I would stand in a strategic place and I would spend the first 15 minutes, no matter how or what was good on the floor, just watching other people bidding to see who was serious and who was not. And there were times when I didn't fall asleep physically, but I fell asleep being mesmerized by a guy that I hadn't seen or a guy that hadn't been there in a while. And he's bidding really, really strategically. And I'm watching him so much that I missed the bid on what I was interested in on. And as a result, I felt guilty But maybe perhaps in that moment it wasn't for me to bid on it, but I was not mature in this habit. I was always blaming myself. And then I had an epiphany moment, and that epiphany moment was this: there'll always be an opportunity. Let me repeat that. There'll always be another opportunity for you to prove the best of yourself to yourself. There'll always be, say it again, another opportunity. And there were many times when I would go to the auction, I would feel guilty because perhaps I didn't use my strategy quite like I wanted to, or perhaps I wasn't as bold as I should have been to get the bins that I wanted. But then I learned there'll always be, put this in your notebook, in your journal, write this, have it tattooed on your arm, whatever you need to do to remember, there'll always be another opportunity. Self guilt can kill your success. Self guilt can damage your potential. Self guilt, condemning yourself, judging yourself outside the realm of correction, beyond the realm of correction is judgment. I need some help. You correct yourself, you learn from the mistakes that you have made, and then you move on to try and launch and walk and live again. But if you do not move on to walk to live, again, then you begin to judge yourself, and then that's where self-destructive behavior comes. And we all have a level of self-guilt. Even the very wealthy, they may not say it, they may act like they don't care, but we are all human first before we are classed as wealthy or otherwise. And in the corner, in the back, in the booth, somewhere where there are no other voices around, no other applause, someone is feeling guilty about a behavior, or someone is feeling guilty about another's behavior that you or I could not control. I need some help. Have you been guilty over what you can't control? That's question one. And have you been guilty over what you could control? If you have a problem with self-guilt, I suggest that you reach out to me, DM me, get some people in your group that can help you. Say, listen, I got a problem with self-guilt. I'm always feeling bad about yesterday. I'm always feeling bad about what happened to me. I'm also always feeling bad about what I could have done better. Real simple, but guess what? Self-guilt can kill. And so that was 3: self-loathing, self-doubt, self-guilt. How about this one right here? How about this one right here? Self-sabotaging. I have learned, as I have studied myself and continue to, that there is a subtle consciousness to self-sabotage ourselves, especially if we have been left, if we have abandonment issues, if we have also certain kinds of clinging or relationship issues. Is the word that I'm thinking about doesn't come to mind just yet. But self-sabotaging is a subconscious decision to interrupt any progress or success that I could potentially have by practicing and indulging, and we're all guilty of in behaviors that are anti or against the goals that I speak of. We all have a level of these habits, but some of us live by self-sabotaging. I know I could do better, but I don't do better because when I do better and I see the same symptoms of what I went through, I draw back because, as somebody told me one time, I'm not a people person. I don't do people well. I don't do people well. That's kind of strange to hear that, but it's sometimes, at least the person is trying to be honest. I don't do people well. And so I was telling a young lady, I said, now listen, I know you don't prefer people, and I know you prefer to be by yourself, but could it be that your career going forward, and she's much younger than me, and I said, could it be your career going forward could be sabotaged because of your preferences? You remember I did a show on that your preferences can stop your potential. Well, self-sabotaging behavior is common. We all do it. We all have behaviors within our consciousness. Our subconscious is filled with conclusions and summaries that still in the analytical aspect of things are not fair for forward living. And so we self-sabotage in different ways. I'm encouraging you today, take a look at that and bring the habit. Now, it doesn't mean that you will never, but bring the habit of destroying your own efforts before they get off the ground to an end. I'm the coach and I approve this message. Bring to an end the habit of arresting your development before its maturity. I need some help. You need to write that down and tweet me right there. Let's move beyond guilt, beyond the doubt, beyond the grievance, and let's move into a more productive state of mind. So we talked about the guilt, the doubt, the sabotage. How about this one right here? I want to encourage you today to consider not judging you. Do not bring the gavel down on your human experience just yet. Do not sentence yourself and abandon your own efforts and interests just yet. There is room, as they said in the Baptist church when I was growing up, there is room at the cross for you. There's no need to die now. If you want to kill something, kill the memory that reminds you that you were not worthy enough to fall forward, to succeed. Sometimes success is just moving on. Well, how did you accomplish that great thing? I had to decide to move on. And I want to encourage you that these 5 habits, self-doubt, self-guilt, self-loathing, self uh self-doubt, self-loathing, and self-guilt and self-sabotage. These habits are common. Don't feel like it's just you. It's all of us. We're in this world together. I know that's a cliche that people use loosely, but I'm the coach and I approve this message that you have already been judged. If you point the finger at someone else or talk about someone else's situation, you have several fingers pointing back at you. And by the same judgment you judge others, and by the same conversation that you judge others, you yourself will be judged. And therefore, a step further, I might say, that those who are sinful and arduous and contemptuous and even criminal, they know that they are that. Let's bring a level of expectation that the human experience would not be arrested by lack, by prejudice, by hindrance, to experience something new, something fresh. Let's also engraft into our mentality that people have a right to another opportunity, that the human experience is filled with ills. But we as humans have learned throughout the eons of time to rise above the wreckage. And we have rebuilt, not only physically, but we can redo it spiritually. You are not permanently on the injured list of life. And I want to encourage you to break these 5 habits, or at least put them on the radar and put them on notice. That I will not be arrested in my development of who I am. I will proceed forward. I will always know that if these habits are present, I will always realize and accept that it can threaten where I'm going and who I'm becoming, because growth is my aim. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, this is the coach.